Welcome back to Movified Wednesdays. We are here, ready to rock and roll. I am your host, Mark Hirschi with Salmon's Moving and Storage, located in rainy Vancouver, British Columbia, especially today. It's cold, it's damp, it's gross. I'm happy to be sitting here with some awesome boys here. We got Stephen Reed from Ready Rolls and Big League Movingers, and we have Brian Slater from New City Moving. I don't know.
It's
just
always
keep going with it. I just keep going with it. I think that's, we never really, just like moving guru. Is that what we should just kind of say?
Evangelical moving guru.
Sure.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Political figure.
Just keep it simple. It's the GOAT. It's the GOAT.
For those watching the video today, I'm coming straight from not British Columbia, but Washington, D.C. And I'm hanging out in the Oval Office today in preparation of our new election, by which we will attempt to bring on not one, but two candidates that are better than Trudeau. Shots fired.
Shots fired. Hey, that's a winning statement right there.
For all the viewers in Canada, that's a joke.
I'm going to throw some current events in there too. I'm coming live from Memphis, Tennessee, where the Memphis Grizzlies, formerly the Vancouver Grizzlies, beat the Milwaukee Bucks 122-99 last. Brian from the Oval Office is a big fan of the Bucks.
You know, I love the Bucks, and when I asked him right before this call what the final score was, this man physically made me Google it in order to figure out the final. It's like, that's some adding insult to injury, you know, like, oh, why don't you just go ahead and Google it?
All hard grit and grind.
So we seem to be having a lot of fun here with trying to figure out topics. And every time I send out a topic, Brian constantly thinks that my company's under fire, and he's trying to
preface it with the fact that it's a topic is your problem. You don't even have the decency to write the word topic in there, which I find to be insulting, frankly.
No, I feel like I should have a subject header, but yeah, we're going to get into this. Like,
well, can we note that last week we thought that was a review for you, and Brian elected to call your customer immediately before reading happened.
He was like, ready.
Let me call your customer for you. I got this.
He was ready. You know, what I find lately is, and this kind of got brought up through a lot of the meetings that I feel like Stephen's been having with Ready Rolls and trying to get business owners in place, get them with VAs, get them excited about not having to constantly work in their business, but more on their business. And it really always feeds me that, you know, that old time saying, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And it really, to me, kind of we're going to like kind of break this down and talk a little bit about this, because a lot of times we see business owners that jump in, they're like, I need brand new trucks. So they're going in, they're setting up these leases, everything has to look crystal clean. Like the sales haven't even started, but they want all these brand new trucks. Or the reverse, and they're like, look, we're getting busier and we're just going to start with one truck, get a used truck, and, you know, and go from there and grow, and then figure it out once they have more cash flow. The other thing is, hey, I need a sales team. I need this, I need that, I need that. I mean, there's probably people that are reaching out to Stephen saying, hey, I need a VA, and they have no idea what they need a VA for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we all kind of started from the beginning. What was something that you guys found was useful? Like, I mean, I know Brian's story, but Brian, do you want to elaborate, like, kind of what you did when you kind of started moving company?
I think this is actually interesting. It's an interesting choice.
Brian, did you ever hire a GM talking about the chicken yet?
I think we did in year 14, if I'm being completely honest. Well, I think the individual worked for us in the 12th year or 13th year of the company, and then got promoted to a general manager somewhere around the 14th or 15th year of the company. But that definitely wasn't an initial thought of mine. What I will say is that you could not have asked for two better guests on this one, because when I talked to Stephen Reed about how much money I was spending on digital marketing, he looks at me like I'm out of my goddamn mind. But at the same time, when I look at his lease and purchase payments on his trucks, I think that this man's completely out of his mind. So you can't get two opposite sides of the spectrum here in regards to new, beautiful trucks with a great moving company and awesome digital marketing with a great company. I think we're going to be able to work this out full circle today. With that being said, I do think that using a VA or not using a VA, so I think the most important thing, and when I'm speaking with a lot of people about moving, it seems like a lot of these guys are still on the trucks. Now, Stephen, we had a conversation earlier on this week by which you said that you had met with a couple movers that were interested in our last episode that were interested in getting a VA. You said that once in a while, people are still in the trucks. So I guess first and foremost, before jumping into GM versus, operations manager, how do we get these folks off the truck? I think might be the first.
Prepping the truck, swap the trucks, making money for the organization.
So I think that majority of our organizations are sort of owner driven. Anytime we go out to eat at a restaurant, if the owner's the one that's in the back of the house making the food, it's got to be good, right? So I think same for moving companies, right? I think when the owner's in the back making the food, right? I think that you got the best possible product. So with that being said, how do we speak about getting owners off of the trucks and into the office in order to be the visionary that most moving companies need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to sidestep your question, Mark, but I think we need to start there and then work into the GM and the operations manager. What do you guys think?
I think a GM, I'll echo in what you said in year 14. I just did this a year ago, and I never had what you'd call a GM because I needed my leaders as I scale. If I was scaling an operation manager, I need to know, and that person report to me because he's running my operation. Yeah, I need to scale and have a salesperson who's answering to me because I built the system and I'm the general manager. I am teaching everybody throughout my organization what I want them to run per department. Right. And so to do that, you really have to have that fine-tuned and no holes before you expect somebody else to manage your systems and what you built.
100%.
I skipped and went vice president, and that was in year 15 for me.
See, I think when you're starting off, you are the GM. Like to me, GM is like the bottom of the list before you're replacing yourself, because to me, as the owner, you're the owner, but a lot of times if I was going in to someone's house or there was an issue or I was the guy that got stuck in the truck, I wouldn't be walking into that customer's home saying, "Oh, hi, I'm the president of the company and the owner and welcome, and we're going to do your move today." Because A, they're going to think, why are you on the truck? Right? B, guess what I'm doing? I'm probably answering the phones too. My earpiece is probably going off my Bluetooth, so I'm answering a sales call at the same time.
You're not going to get
starting off. You're not going to get tips. So like generally, I'm always like, oh, someone came sick. I'm just the general manager. Let me handle it. But at the same time, too, to me, like Steven's saying, you are the GM. You are planning out how you want this company to run. You are putting the pieces in place. When I hear that guys have to still jump on a truck, what I find is it's more of a, do they have
hiring
enough
function?
Exactly. Are they hiring enough? Are they keeping that on rotation? Do they have enough guys that they at least have 1 or 2 or 3 guys on backup? I find drivers to be the most important to have as a backup as opposed to a helper, because guess who's going on the truck? I am, because the driver didn't show up, right? If I have a helper, I can probably still make that happen, right?
I always think about this like the enterprise sort of rental car model, by which like if somebody gets a job as an executive there, they sort of pick up a broom day one and they start sweeping the floors, and then they work their way to the call center, and then they work their way to running a branch. And I just think that that's a really well-versed sort of way in order to understand everything inside of your company. Now, I'm not going to say that like I walk on water, but like in relation to moving companies, by the grace of God, I sort of did this GM role all by myself for the first 10 years, so to speak. And now, with the exception of maybe some really intricate human resources things in the state of Illinois, and maybe some fleet stuff, just because I've always been like sort of mechanically inclined. Besides those 2 things, I'm pretty much like can roll up my sleeves and be that utility infielder for any role in the company. Also, I know enough about trust but verify. So I know enough when I'm hiring that marketing person, when I'm hiring that sales rep, when I'm hiring that claims person, when I'm interviewing those movers, I pretty much know within some reason, but within some parameters, I know exactly if I'm getting what I think that I'm getting or not.
Yeah, I agree too. Like you got to be in everything. You got to develop. But for the first years, you're developing systems. Now, I'm not meaning systems as in smart moving or super move or anything like that, or chariot. I'm meaning systems as in you're developing your systems and how dispatch works. You're developing your systems and how you communicate to your staff. You're developing your systems and all these different things for people to duplicate, operate. Right.
You're understanding what your customers want, because you're physically picking up the thing and saying, "How was your move today with Mark and Steven?" Oh, it was a good move? Okay, before I run this credit card, would you like to add a tip? And they're explicitly telling you what they liked or disliked about the moving process.
In that
And
real
I just
time, so you can plug it in and save yourself so much money instantly where somebody would as well, like I kind of bring on saying.
if anybody out there is listening, if like somebody has access to these amazing human beings that can set up their business processes for them and not sort of need them, please give me their numbers, because I would like to start 50 businesses and I can definitely use people like that. But if I was a betting man, it's really hard. Like at some point it starts to transition less about being moving inclined, and it starts to turn into actually being an entrepreneur and being more well-versed in the business. I could tell you that I would be the last guy that you'd want to work a hump strap and take 10 boxes up a flight of stairs. I can tell you, Mark, for sure, you would beat me. And Stephen, I'd give you second place. But in regards to me, I'd be the last person that you'd want to do that. But I don't necessarily, I always try to transcend. I always tried to know different things inside of the company that made me more well-versed. And for me, it wasn't even a question of GM or operations manager or any of these things, because number one, I was looking at the money that I was making as like every dollar that I brought in was a dollar closer to the next truck or a dollar closer to the next raise for the guys, so that I could get a stronghold on the market. So I looked at those initial dollars as like, I could put these dollars into the market and make 5%, or I could put these dollars into a truck and make 25% on this money. Let's not sugarcoat the fact that for anybody out there listening, if you have a large captive audience that wants to move with you and you're putting your money into the S&P instead of a wrapped vehicle with your name out on the street, that the returns are, you are never going to not beat the market if you got trucks out on that street and customers that are willing to move with you.
There's no better investment than yourself. If you're equipped and you drive and you know nobody's going to beat you in your city.
Every year when you figure out how many trucks you need for that season, go back during that 12-month period, look at how many trucks you needed for that season, fulfill those amount of trucks in your roster, either by lease, own, or rent, use that as your baseline, and then use the next year in order to adjust again. Do I need to rent some trucks on the weekends? Do I need to lease some trucks for a summertime rental, right? Which one of these things do I have to do? But do I have my baseline in order to fulfill what I did last year? And do I have the resources in order to pivot and capture everything that's available in the market this year?
Anytime we talk about rentals and moving, I got to talk about my history and just say, watch the invoices and turn those dang things in when you're not using them, right? Make that process. But sorry, I just wanted to add that. I want to throw a third party in here because I know Brian and I both have a similar story, and we both have a different level. We both have different skill sets, and we both have a lot of unique ways we grew our business. But our knight in shining armor, our first pivotal role in my organization, at least, and I'm sure Brian will echo, I know his story a little bit, is the office manager, right?
1,000%. Yeah.
If you see that movie, I laugh so hard because this is me. Besides the rest of the characters, it's Blackberry. If you watch the movie Blackberry, right? You know when he gets fired from his other job, says, "I'm going to go invest in this company that is Blackberry," and he goes to the staff, and it's kind of a bunch of kids playing around. The first thing he does is say he moves a desk out from his office, he puts it out in front of the area, and he says, "Hello, everybody. This is my new assistant on day one. Please go through her, and we're going to get these things done, and I'll be scheduling meetings with y'all to go forward." And in my organization, man, if I didn't have Lindsay to start out, and if I didn't have Kelsey at some point as my office managers to be my rock, to be my person in the background that guarded my schedule, that looked out for me in an organized manner, totally different than my crew that I'm growing with as far as moving crew. That is where I went to a different level and had a different level of somebody looking forward for me. Hey, Stephen, I see the problem. How can I work on training, getting that out of your mind so we can scale? And in return, I mentioned Kelsey, I mentioned Lindsay. I rebuilt my company again with virtual assistants in 2017 to 2019 with Rachel. And I duplicated that for more. My office managers were Lauren and Suzanne, and now it's Elaine and Chris with Ready Rolls. But that is my biggest hole that watches my back, defends me. That's off stuff, follows through for me with care, and really at a different level in a woman way watches my back. So like, you'll hear me so much respect for women in this industry because I'm not where I am without all the women in the background that are pushing me and dealing with my crazy and filling the holes that I have. So that's kind of like what inspired me to build that. Those people inspired me to build Ready Rolls. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I had a Samantha at New City Moving. Well, I don't think I had a Samantha. I had a Samantha at New City Moving from just about, I would say the first year through about the 7th or 8th year. And in regards to protecting my time, I only, and maybe by way of Steven, I only started doing that recently. And that's really when New City started to take off, was when I was sort of working on the business and not in the business. And I think it took a while for me to actually validate the fact that I was different and that I could think up things that the average human being couldn't see, or that my work ethic was different. Or like, I think I proved to myself that I was as intelligent as I knew that I could be by way of hard work. But I wasn't necessarily using Samantha to protect my time, but what I was having her do was a little bit of claims, a little bit of closing out the job. She was protecting every dollar that came into the business. I could think of like 300 ways in order to rob from a moving company, and most people would never even see it coming. And I only say that because I fell victim 2 or 3 times to that sort of situation. But she was taking care of all of the office management, paying out the guys, making sure they were all getting their checks in a timely fashion, closing out all the jobs, was assisting me with some of the paperwork behind the scenes. So I think that I took off from like 0 to 12 million without like an official title other than like just myself, an office manager. So to say that, like, I don't say that how people spend their own money or what people do inside of their own businesses is it's their own business. You can go out with 2 trucks and find a general manager if you want, but just know that that money is like gasoline, and you're going to need that gasoline in order to fuel that fire. Number 1. And number 2, do know that you should at least have some baseline level of what's being done in your business at every different level, because it would be impossible for me or for most people to work for somebody that doesn't have any idea. It would be hard for people to build rockets for Elon if Elon didn't have an idea of how a rocket looks or functions.
Are you a mover looking to make an impact? Discover Moving Letters AI and join the ML Plus Club today. Elevate your customer engagement with the personal touch of handwritten letters.
If you want to take your company to that next level, it's the only way to subscribe. If you're doing anything but Moving Letters AI, you need to get on it. So it's going to take your business to that next level. You're going to see an increase in that revenue. Let's go.
I highly recommend using this company. They're amazing to work with. They even send you an email on how much work they're producing for you.
Don't miss out. Join the revolution and start making moves that matter.
Put a golden damn ticket in there with Moving Letters AI.
I think.
I'm gonna step in on 2 different points on here so we can wrap it into a bow. On one, I remember being a teenager, getting a job at a restaurant. They wanted to put me as a server. And I said, I'd rather just work in the kitchen first because I want to understand what products I'm making. So by the time I became out to server, I knew what the food I was cooking, or like the food that I was serving out, and I really had a good idea, which I always recommend to so many restaurants, going like, put your people in the kitchen, let them understand the product, and then slowly move their way around. And I was able to do so many different positions. And in the moving world, just like you guys are saying, you know, when you're starting something out, like, understand each role, document it down, start asking yourselves the questions that you're hearing, whether it's from the customer, whether it's from your drivers, whether it's from your office staff. Like, all of these people are coming to you with different concerns, and you should be documenting it down so that you are building out your SOPs and making sure that it's all done properly. So that's kind of my figure out for one. The other part that you guys are talking about, which is so key, and it sounds like where we were talking about this whole, where do we start, how do we grow, is getting yourself a really strong office manager that you can share that role with, and it takes a lot off your plate for dealing with the day-to-day in the office and making sure that someone's not robbing from you, and put a lot of trust into that person and make sure that they feel appreciated and well respected, and in that and have their back. And I think that can go a long way. It has in my business so many times as well too. The other part, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, is that when you think of the work ethic of an entrepreneur. And I know someone like you, Brian, it's like day and night. Steven, you're up at 3 a.m. going like, what am I doing next?
He actually goes to bed at midnight and wakes up at 3 a.m. I don't know how I think he's technically a vampire, but you guys will have to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, I have no idea either, because I'll be texting you and I feel like, man, your time zone, it's got to be late. And I know you're going to get up in like 3 hours or 4 hours. So it's like, geez, what the hell's going on here?
It's a gift.
But, we also talk about the burnout, right, of an entrepreneur. So where's that fine line? Because when you're talking, Brian, being like, well, I went from like 0 to 12 million before like I really kind of expanded my, inside office operations. I'm pulling my hair out going like, how the fuck are you doing that? Being the GM and running dispatch, everything else, when, we're doing like 8, 9 million. And I'm like, I got all these different people in place just so that I'm not pulling my hair out.
I think it all comes down to like expectation, right? Like, and upbringing, right? Like I didn't have any idea as to what these sort of luxury roles or ads would do for me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know any other way but to grind it out. When you're doing that from 2 or 3 years old, you sort of get like habituated to doing that. So I really didn't know the difference. I knew that some people in this world, when they fall off that tightrope, I know that some people have a net underneath to catch them. And I know that I didn't. And I think that propelled me to never fall. Or if I did fall, I caught the rope and got back on it.
What about you, Steven?
It's like, my mom would write a note she was a hardworking woman. My mom worked at the hub in FedEx while she was going to nursing school at key times of me growing up. And my mom would leave a note on the refrigerator that said, "Don't dream of success, wake up and work at it." And I watched her. I think that's kind of how I got ingrained. And that's probably where I tied into an office manager so well. Because my mom I used to structure, instead of my dad, this corporate FedEx guy growing up, I was next to my mom kind of growing up in this hustle and bustle, working FedEx, going to nursing school, then doing nursing, then so I need to do a second job, and raising me at the same time. And it really, really helped me kind of get that hard work ethic. This is what my career is, something that is serious. My image is something that is serious for my career. And she really helped structure me. And that also helped kind of tie into probably me working so well in my personality with an office manager and needing that, and kind of rolling into my passion now and that ready roles and kind of what I've developed in that.
And were wives involved at this time? Like through this growth period, were the wives involved? Like, were you married? Were you dating?
Just like, yeah.
Because
I was a bachelor for the first 10 years. And I met a lot of nice women, but when you give them the like third excuse for a week that you got to work till midnight because the truck's out, they stop liking you. So shout out to every woman that I've dated between 2009 and 2018. You all were great. It just wasn't the right time and the right place. But with that being said, there wasn't much of it. There was no vacations. There wasn't much of a social life. I'm not even recommending that anybody take things to the extreme that I did. But what I will tell you is every single business owner that I know that is successful, by which 3 of them are on this call, 2 besides myself, are relatively obsessive with what they do professionally. So more than this podcast and getting together for this hour once a week, it is pretty routine that we will be texting each other about moving for 2 or 3 hours a night, going well into midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And it's that, I think that you guys have the gene just like I do, but it's definitely like a compulsion. And I think that all the best business owners, now there's people that come up with an idea, they leverage executives and all this stuff in order to build out ideas like Mitt Romney or whoever. But for me, I've always been driven by like these rags to riches stories where like somebody's like captain of the ship and they're like steering the wheel with their people behind them. Like those are the stories. Like flipping $1 into $1 million for me is far more of an amazing story than Warren Buffett or Elon turning like $100 million into $1 billion, because I know how hard it is to start off as a seed and to have to water that seed. And those are the stories that I like. So I wouldn't urge anybody to do it, but I'm saying like true entrepreneurs, I think, have some sort of DNA that just keeps them just to some degree obsessed.
Yeah, my business is my hobby, right? And I'm
Mine too.
blessed that way. And so when I was married to my hobby. I was married just like a lot of us were distracted. When I got in, I started Big League when I was 23. And I knew that was the sacrifice I wanted to choose. And if I chose that sacrifice and I did my vision, the stuff that I wanted in life would come. And so I chose to obsess with my business instead of partying with my friends every night. I lived in Atlanta for a couple of years. I'm a big ass Braves fan, guys. And I didn't get to go to one Braves game in that time, the first spat I lived there. And you know, it's sacrifice. I knew I didn't want to choose that Brave game because I was going to be able to go to Braves games with my family.
For the record, though,
that's what I was creating the sacrifice at that time.
For the record, though, the Atlanta Braves sort of hit their peak right before you started Big. If I'm being honest with you, Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, Pendleton, McGriff. Should I keep going?
It's one of the greatest teams in baseball ever. So I'm not going to argue.
One of the greatest teams. So I got on the throwback Phillies hat today.
No, I don't like that.
Yeah, so I would say John Crook, Lenny Dykstra. I would say that Mitch Williams. I would say that was a great team, but I would give the Braves. That was against Joe Carter this might be a sore topic for Mark for us to bring this.
That Philly team didn't win our division once because of our pitcher.
I know.
So I don't know if a lot of people heard of John Crook and Lenny Dykstra because they didn't really get on main TV because the Braves were striking them out. That's all.
And because I'm pretty sure they were drinking beers and smoking cigarettes in the dugout too. But that's neither here nor there. I think the whole team has throat cancer, by the way. If you Google that, it's really weird. All from dip. Anyways, but that was that Joe Carter year, right? Amazing man. Anyway, sorry about that. I remember that Braves team distinctly.
It was a good team. Now, I don't remember if I was finishing or not. I think I finished the thought there.
Well, I guess the follow-up on that one is, when did you decide to start having some balance? Like when you took a step back and go, okay, you know what? I actually probably need a little bit of a life. Brian's going, maybe, you know what? My girlfriend at the time probably wants a little bit of my weekends or like an evening. Like, are you guys, especially as entrepreneurs, is that like something you're putting down going, sorry, babe, like this hobby of mine is paying the bills and you will adjust your schedule with mine?
So
or is there a little bit of negotiation?
I'm so lucky to have my wife. She's the sweetest ever. But my wife, it was important to me for my wife to understand my love. And so I was pretty, she had to, I courted her at first for a long time, but for the next stage, she really had to go through it for me to make sure that she was okay with me dealing with the schedule that I have and that she was ready for that kind of commitment because I know how tough that is on the other side of what I'm doing.
I met my wife on an online dating app, and I had always taken young ladies out during that time to like a dive bar spot and bought them like a shot and a beer sort of deal. And then I saw my wife's profile. She was wearing a red dress from Las Vegas from a girls' trip. And it said, I like nothing more than a nice steak and a martini. So I decided I'm going to go on a first date with this young lady to a steak restaurant called Mastro's in Chicago. And I was going to get her a martini and a steak. And I think that for the last 7 years, we've seen each other basically every day since then. So I knew that I had to step away a little, but we had kids relatively early into the relationship. So that was the wake up moment for me, was the kids. My wife is a sweetheart. Shout out, Catherine. My wife is a sweetheart, but at the same time, the kids were when I realized that I needed to hit the pause button a little and I needed to like go to the splash pad and do everything that cool dads do. Shout out to Mark also and Steven for being cool dads. If you check out our social medias, we're all about kids. But we're probably better business owners, but we're learning on the job when it comes to these kiddos, right? I don't think there's any right way to do it.
Mover Marketing AI is changing the game for moving companies with their innovative digital marketing solutions. I've been working with them on my SEO and website, and the results are incredible. My online presence has improved, making my site both visually appealing and highly visible to potential customers. But that's not all they do. Mover Marketing AI offers a full range of services, from engaging social media management to robust branding, advertising, and public relations. They help you build a strong, trustworthy brand. If you're ready to elevate your moving business, I highly recommend Mover Marketing AI. They've been a game changer for me, and they can be for you too. Thanks to Mover Marketing AI for sponsoring this episode and for their support.
That's the same thing that hit me. I was in Atlanta, right? I grew. It hit me hard. I was in Atlanta, and man, I had everything what everybody listening here would want, two thriving, growing businesses. But man, I couldn't take off if my wife got sick to watch my child. And then the second one was coming. We had an oopsie. The second one was coming, right? And so that's when I made so many critical decisions in my company. That's when I said, I'm going to fire sell the successful company that I've gone to in Atlanta and go back home and focus on being like, how can I do this different and be a family man on that side? And that was a critical decision. That's when I rebuilt my company with VAs at that time. And that really was when it hit me that I can't do this all the time. I need to somehow find a balance to be able to help be a partner to my wife and my family and not just the business. So,
see, I think I was on date 3 with my wife on a double date and had a phone call at around like 10 o'clock at night going, our driver didn't show up to go. And I was looking at her going,
explain who you are at that point. Like, hey, okay.
I was like, I got to go and I got to ditch you and I got to go pick up a truck and go do this job. And thankfully it was just like a late night delivery. But at the same time too, she came back after.
Yeah.
Well, and she, what she was almost like, what the fuck? You got to get your life organized and figure it out and make sure this doesn't happen again if you want to be with me. And it kind of almost gave you a little bit more drive going like, shit, I got to get myself organized. I got to make this so it doesn't happen again. And then prioritize how I spend my days so that at least on the weekends, because I was always at the office on a Saturday, like all day, every day. And I was trying to make sure that like, if I was there, my afternoons were off or something, right? Find like that time and balance to go, okay, I need to make, if I'm going to do this, because I was like Brian, I'd be like, great, yeah, let's go to like going on a date and whatever. I could give two shits until I met my wife and I was like, okay, like here's someone special. I got to make sure the time is there. So I think it's important. I think it's really important as business owners that when that comes into play, you are balancing and making sure that you're spending time with your kids.
Can I just say that your wife was taking a risk on you by being that guy on a third date? Like, okay, there's plenty of people that got to do shit like at their jobs and like run out, right? But you certainly weren't like running out like as a lawyer or as a doctor, right? Like there wasn't somebody dying on the emergency room floor. You're like, honey, I'm physically going to take these keys and get in this big ass dumb fucking truck and I'm going to drive this fucking thing around town. That's like what the guy does that delivers milk to the grammar school kids. Like she took a risk on you.
Oh yeah. Man, I would like, I wish my story was similar on the third date. And Megan said that to me. It took me to have my second child on bed rest to say, hey, I got to change things. And that's kind of where my lane and Ready Rolls and my passion now already, it came from. Is that time in my life, I had to figure it out. And I went to the like crazy world of internet and just said, hey, can I hire somebody to read my emails to me and me answer them? Literally, this is all the job was. So I could go and be like, I hired a nanny, right? My wife is on bed rest with her second child.
He was calling her Miss Doubtfire. Was that Doubtfire?
No, that wasn't Miss Doubtfire.
Different nanny. Okay, cool.
Different nanny. Yeah, no, she was, and I was like, okay, Nolan, you and I are going to figure out microwavables. We're going to have a good time. And I had to cut my work week into, which sounds crazy to say, I had to cut my work week in a work day at 12 hours. And that was hard. Like that was crazy. Jesus. Right? Because my mom was helping in the morning and then the nanny would come over and then I would have to, then I would do that. But blessing in disguise is where I found kind of like my new calling in that. Because I know there's a lot of listeners that feel that I've spoke to. And,
a lot of listeners that probably can't afford it either would look at it going like, oh, maybe I just don't have that opportunity. I don't have that family. I don't have this. I don't have that, you know.
For everybody out there that's listening, Stephen, I can assure you this man's not bullshit. Because when he does these Disney cruises and he's out there messing around with the princesses on the sea and Goofy and Donald and all the rest of them, this fucking guy will not answer a text message for a week at a time when he's out on these Disney cruises.
That's for him. That time, right? They deserve
only to send me a picture of Jasmine and hanging out with his daughter and Aladdin on a private island. And then I respond to the text shortly after and nothing. So this man must have somebody good running his business, because man, did he fall off during that Disney cruise.
That's where like what that email story where that's where she was just checking the emails. Well, she wrote the path for me, just like the other office managers. She was just the first virtual. And what she did is goes, God, this guy, love her to death. But she was like, this guy, I mean, I feel like I need to help him. He's got so much fires going on. He's got so much going on. He's got this house at home. And bless her heart, she studied my email right while I was gone and found out all these things and started writing drafts right for me when I got back and just approving and made it to where that hour would function. And so that's kind of led me down the same way. I gave those same tools that helped me scale my business. Rachel and I helped scale our business, and I built a very similar program from what I learned to onboard somebody in a 2-week period to guide and find work and shield work as an assistant. So after 2 weeks, they're there to help and guide, and you're not saying, what do I need this person to do, and having another person on your plate. And this person comes, they're onboarded to comb your email, deflect things, take action items off you, remind you, is that best for the organization or can I do that?
Have you eaten lunch today? Have you eaten lunch today is a big one.
Yes.
With my shout out to my assistant Marie in the Philippines. If she didn't say, did you eat today? I gotta tell you, I'm thinking
Absolutely.
4 out of 5 days I might not be eating. All jokes aside.
Here's your goals. Like we teach that in the onboarding, but Chris knows my goals, right? And she's telling me, Steven, why didn't you go to lunch with Anderson this week? Right. You had a time block and you started doing stuff in the drive and you didn't go to eat with Anderson. That's your major goal. And that's what I made Ready Rolls is kind of an onboarding that understands you. Right. And we teach that in 2 weeks and we do a full detail onboarding about how to vet and find things in your organization while paying themselves with my business development tools. But
which is genius. And I love that because I'm always the type of person. Sorry, I'm speaking over it. Sorry,
just
Steven.
changed the narrative. I was finishing on this.
Yeah, no. I was just, and I got this rat coughing constantly in the mics.
I got a little bit of a cold.
I bet you do. Yeah.
It's contagious in different ways than I'd give it to you.
So for me,
so this episode's kind of gone right in my, like, this is
and this is where I kind of want to jump into because, a lot of us, or at least I'm going to speak on my behalf, I'm the type of person when there's a new job applicant, especially when I'm part of a hiring process, I tend to always lead with my heart. My wife always says I'm like the worst hiring person because I'll like hire someone, I think they're good, I try and give them chances, and then eventually I'm like, before that 3 months, I'm like, this just really didn't work out. Right? Or the training just was like kind of shit and everything else. Yeah. But I always tend to hire fast. And when I'm working with Ready Rolls to, find this assistant for myself, to find these different roles that I need within my company, I'm like hounding Steven's people going like, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Because I'm so excited. And what I love is that it's like, no. Like you haven't filled out this definition of what exactly you need in this role. I want you to revise this. We're going through this process to make sure that we're hiring you the exact people than just giving you 20 randoms and hope that one sticks.
Yeah. I saw you wrote this on a group text message today. I think you were talking about this, that they needed a little bit more information from you. See, That's the thing. It's really hard for me to take somebody that's like completely over the pond and just be like, hey, listen, I'm this like semi-abrasive, semi-intelligent type A human being, but also if I don't eat lunch, like I need you to reprimand me or scold me in the way that like a mother would. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to I'm not one of these eye-rolling executives or like, hey, go grab my cappuccino or some bullshit. I'm none of that. Like I just want somebody to be honest with me and be like, Brian, when you gave me this job, you said to hold you accountable for X, Y, Z. And I have to swallow my pride and say, I know that you're doing what's best for me. And I'm not eye rolling or why are you questioning? Dude, question me more. I don't know if I'm looking for more chiefs in my business. I'm looking for people that question me as opposed to some presidents when like you take over and then the president like fires the ex-president's cabinet or whatever, right? Like I'm looking to be surrounded by people constantly that are going to tell me, I think this is wrong. Because I find it to be like insanely exciting.
Well, they say the group of friends that you're supposed to be with are people that call you, like a true friend calls you out. on your bullshit, calls you out on the shit that you're doing wrong. And the fake friends are like, oh yeah, awesome, Brian, like keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
But Steven doesn't even do it in a nice way. Sometimes he's just downright, sometimes this man downright gives me an ass chew on. But you know what? I love him like.
Yeah, that's what I'm here to do. And when you're not seeing it and I see it on the outside, I will let you know my viewpoint. And I wouldn't be a friend.
Absolutely.
To do that. On that too, like office management, right? On the office management side, right? You get a whole guide. That's why I think it's important for Brian. Brian and I, and sorry if I mentioned it, I'll say it. I'm ADHD, very much so. You can probably tell
myself included.
Right.
I feel like I'm more ADHD every day with hanging out with you guys. So
yeah. Well, your waist is also going to get thinner, and your pectorals will get bigger hanging around with us. You know,
that's right.
When I look back at 16 years, I have some OMs that I have turnover with. I have some attempted GMs that I had turnover with. I needed someone to help me guide my own schedule before I could guide someone else's. And I think that's the key, I guess, in the whole result of things. That's why I think the third party presidential surprise candidate is the office manager, thus the ready role. But that's the main thing is we get a right arm. We're vetting what ready roles does is we're saying, hey, we want you here long term. Are you wanting to grow with a crazy business owner that needs help guiding, that needs help shielding things? And as you grow, that business owner is going to be wanting to compensate you as you help scale and manage the overseas team to be the same culture. And that's where Ready Rolls is a disruptor in the industry. And I'm confident that nobody can putting it.
So I want to say,
was this episode a plug for Ready Rolls?
I want to say one more thing.
The topic is kind of,
this is just like Hair Club for Men. He's not only the president, but he's a client. He uses the product.
And I'll speak for, I have 2 clients on the podcast, right?
Absolutely. So this is what I will say. I don't want to shit on anybody in the way that they conduct their business.
No.
Yeah, you do.
But
never, not Brian.
It is not, if you just step away, I think that a lot of people analyze their business from inside of it at such a granular level that it seems overwhelming. But if you step away just a little, like take a weekend in the fucking woods or something and just sleep on the cold, hard ground or something, and then come back to your business and say, is doing the sales, customer service, staffing for a 2-truck or a 3-truck or a 4-truck company, is it that fucking hard? And I think you're going to have to come back to, no, it's not that fucking hard. It is just not that hard. Are you making it? Do you lack the systems necessary in order to replicate these moves? And is that the reason why you would consider getting a GM or a VP or an operations manager or vice president or whatever flavor of ice cream that you want to call it? Is that the reason why you need this person? Or can you download Trainual, download Scribe, download Loom, use these 3 tools in order to like take what's in your brain down to paper, do that for a month and see if you're still thinking about an operations manager or a GM in a sub 10 truck operation.
Let's talk operations managers. We haven't really touched on too much, but that's a really, I do not have a lot of experience in Mark. I'm sure you do on that of fail and successes.
It takes a certain type of person, I think, and like, you know, it takes a certain type of person to handle dispatch and being in the moving world and being a glorified babysitter to a bunch of adult men that are working for you that, you know, have every excuse in the book worse than some high school drama. Like it's wild, the shit that I keep hearing all the time, day in and day out. And also what I love recently is I had guys going, oh, that guy didn't show up today? Oh, I did see him with like a case of beer. He called in sick? Oh, interesting. He was finishing off his day. And
I love when they come to pick up the check on the day that they called out, they come to pick up the check. Nothing like it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was sick, but you know what? I made it to work for that check.
For sure. Yeah. But when it comes down to, you know, finding a really good employee to come and work for you, what are some of the hiccups? Like, what were some of the downfalls that you found on some of the first hires that were some leading roles, like the office manager or operation?
Not having myself figured out to guide, right? Not having myself figured out to guide the schedule, so I burnt through employees. So you just heard how much I work, so that's tough on an operation manager, right? To be hanging with me. on those things. So I took great people with me, and I just burned them down because
I brought
operation is a tough job. I mean, they call
I brought in some amazing people, and I just stepped on every goddamn one of their toes.
Yeah.
I overrode their decisions, didn't bring them to the table for decisions they should have been included in. I was so, yeah, I just if they didn't do something the way that I wanted it to, instead of stepping back, making it less personal and making it more about what's best for the company, I was just like, you know what? You didn't handle that sale the way that I wanted, so I'm going to make the next 5. I'm going to call the next 5 leads myself. And there was completely, and that's like something that I've always carried with me too. Like I at one point had a GM, an operations manager, a recruiting manager, a trainer, and an HR person. And the movers would call me directly saying, hey boss, I'm not getting enough hours on the schedule. I had like 6 or 7 people between the movers, the helper, like the seasonal helper. I had like 7 degrees of separation between me and this guy. And sure as shit, I was like, why isn't Filiberto on the schedule? How many times do I need to say this? And
I cause shit all the time. Usually now, eventually I start going, look, go talk to dispatch, go talk to so-and-so, go talk to so-and-so. But I still get that. Where like, I now have this main driver that has been texting with me or has some things, and then they reach out to me for some reason, and then it's me going over to the guys and going, why isn't so-and-so on the schedule? Hey, can you make sure this person? And it's a slippery slope because I feel like I'm telling them what to do for their job. They should know what they're doing for their job, but I still like the control. I mean,
I really enjoyed giving out annual raises and not being asked every day. Like the only thing that I don't miss about being like brothers in arms with the guys is I got asked for a raise probably twice a day for 10 years. Like people I had just given a raise to like the previous month, they're like, look at this review, boss. What do you think about another $1? And I literally had to tell them, like, I literally had to tell these guys, like, if I gave you a fucking $1 every time you asked for it, you'd be making like $3,000 fucking dollars right now. And I think that you'd still ask me for another $1. So I can't stress enough, like annual raise. I would march them right into Andy, my recruiter's office, and say, when's the last time Steven got a raise? Months and 20 days ago. Steven, see you in 10 days, buddy. I'm going to have a sandwich waiting here for me when you come, now that I know that you're coming. But I will see you in 10 days. Not 9, not 8. I will see you literally in 10 days.
One thing I did while scaling too, very, very bad a couple of times, was in operations, at least in my org, they're my buddies, right? I work with them every day. I'm close to them. I'm an operationally minded guy, just like Brian. It took me a long time to let go. Still jump in there and call some stuff sometimes. That gives me headaches. But I think I forced a lot of my friends growing with me to grow out of their comfort zone that they weren't ready for. And that was really big for me, is I kept putting some people, or I knew better. And this mover, I said some silly things when I look back. But you know what? I know he's going to fail, but he deserves this promotion. He deserves a shot at it because he wants it. And then I paid for it for 6 months and said, I lost a good employee at where he was at because he forced himself to promote what I knew he wasn't going to be successful.
You know what? I'm guilty. My hands are like, you caught me red-handed with that one, because my wife told me once that my gravestone is going to say, like, here lies, born in 1983, died in, hopefully, I think it's like at least 10 years from now or something. She said that my gravestone is going to say, like, here lies Brian Slater, a man that's given more opportunities to people that didn't want them than any other human being on the face of the earth. You know what I mean? Just like I'm given opportunities.
That I'm the same way on that.
Hey, sales employee X, you're really great at sales. I think you should consider management. Well, Brian, I like to work like 8 hours and not 8 hours and 15 minutes. I got these dogs that I like to donate my time with. I'm also a member of the Red Cross, and I'm doing all this donation shit. And also I love fucking Netflix, and I like to turn it on at 5:30 and watch it till midnight. And I'm like, but don't you want more out of this life? And I'm giving opportunities to people that just, flat out don't want it. Flat out don't want it. And that's something to, and that's something to, on a side note here, That's something to look for in your business. There is nothing wrong with having the part-time people, the 9-to-5ers, just as long as they're proportionally paid for their efforts. There's nothing wrong with just having the role player in dispatch that comes in every morning at 6 and is out by 2 p.m. There's nothing wrong with that person.
Sure, but that's a tough, slippery slope. I have a hard time sometimes with that because I'm always like, are you taking the company phone with you? Do you have the cell phone just in case you're going to get text messages? Like I pay, and it's always because you're going to get those text messages from drivers or helpers like at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Who's answering those? You?
No. I mean, with the size and scale that we were with 350 movers, like we typically had 2 morning openers, right?
Okay.
So the local dispatch manager and another assistant dispatcher were in the mornings. And then there was a mid-shift person. And then we had a nighttime closer that hangs around until the last truck's back on the lot. So I had the luxury of having that person. But at the same time, like just people can still be valuable in life and in their roles and just not be us. Because if they were us, they wouldn't be working for us. So that's just
what do you say about the people that
you go back in time, the part-time thing at a scale, help me with dispatch in the morning. On your 2 off days, I'll do it. And then I have a VA team, which I do in my own organization. Once that truck passes the lot, they're watching my trucks. They're checking to make sure they're not going anywhere. They're checking their logs. They're checking in mid-move with the customer, and they're closing out the job. So once it leaves the lot, it's theirs until it comes back to the lot. And then we check in and we ask questions. Because we have VA teams, we ask questions and we say, hey, what was the hardest thing you moved today? Not was there a hard thing to move? What was the hardest thing to move? If there was one thing that could have done better on that move, what was it? And it gets them to give feedback like, well, the new guy had his dolly skills. So guess what? We're noting the next morning, dispatch, we need to work on somebody's dolly skills, whoever they reference. So that's kind of the system that we have. And I'd go back and scale it the same way if I could. I'd take the overseas VA team where I could afford some more structure watching it, more nighttime. Yes, they don't know American moving. They can study it, but there's so much problem solving that goes in American moving. But they'll be able to take out
Canadian moving.
Yeah, and Canadian
we're
moving.
not sure. We're not sure. I've never actually been there.
But 90% of your moves now are not going to get escalated, right? And aren't problems. And then you're only making those nighttime calls 10% for that operation span.
I'll hire somebody on the drop of a dime if I know they're going to pay for themselves. Well, Brian, why do you have a trainer? That person's making $70,000, $80,000 a year. Well, yeah, when I saved $150,000 in damage claims and I reduced my accidents, truck driving accidents by 60%, our workers' comp is down 70%. Why don't you? I would turn the question on you. When you're asking me, why do I have a trainer? I would ask you, if that person could pay for themselves and then more inside of the organization, why don't you have that person?
Bingo.
I've always been a big proponent when talking to Stephen about find those roles that pay for themselves. Hey, go out and find that person that does claims, because the settlement that they're going to get the customer to sign off on, whereas opposed to Stephen's going to start with his heartstrings, giving the client exactly what they want, or maybe Mark is going to take it personal that it's his money coming out of his pocket. You find that claims person that's sort of like not associated with the thing. They're able to get the customer to solve the claim in a more reasonable amount. They're paying for themselves. That trainer analogy that I said, they're paying for themselves. At scale, when you have that human resources manager that stops you from getting those lawsuits, they're paying for themselves.
Your expenses will carve out how to incentivize them to pay for themselves.
I got a personal question on that one. Unless you have continuous claims and problems happening every single day, I find a claims position is, relatively small, because you should hopefully try and avoid claims as much as possible. I got my trainer and I got very minimal claims. What is that person doing? Or what if, obviously Brian's someone within your company does claims. So what is another role that person would be doing, or that you would have them assigned to on top of just doing claims?
We were doing 14,000 moves a year at 3.7 damage ratio. 3.7% of moves out of those 14,000 had some sort of claim or customer dissatisfaction. Times 0.037.
Brian did the math and said, if I brought a trainer in here, incentivizing
that was about 600. That's about 600 claims per year. 550 to 600 claims. So those claims at the same time that they're arising every day, not all of those claims close out the same day. Some of those claims require you to look for a third-party vendor. Some of those claims require an in-house repairman. So you can have a simple wall scratch that's going to take you 4 or 5 days in order to remediate or in order to fix, and that can just stretch itself out. So for those, it's just like sales leads, right? Like on Monday when we all walk into those sales leads, but we still have those leads from Friday and Saturday that we didn't get to. It all compounds. So we try like to give them enough breathing room in order to get through things so that we can expedite those claims, knowing full and well that a claim that is quickly resolved will be resolved cheaper than a claim that's dragged out. So it's very, but to your point, if you're not doing that volume of moves, that office manager as a catch-all, a little bit of HR, a little bit of payroll, a little bit of reconciliation of accounts or your QuickBooks, a little bit of claims, right? Like a little bit. You don't necessarily, for all those listening that are sub 20, 25 trucks, like you don't need an HR, you don't need a claims person, you don't need a CFO or a controller. Really, all you need at that level is like one person that you take like 2 weeks out of your schedule and say, this is the way that I would like for the books to be reconciled, or let's watch a YouTube video together. This is how come sit by me every time that there's a claim, call me over and I'll teach you how to go through it. If something's going on in HR, we think that we have some liability. Here's a number to an attorney on retainer that you can use if it's too difficult for you, instead of I stub to toe. So I would say that office manager role is the gold standard for it. Could be all those things. You can find one person that can do all that, and you'd be surprised what you'd have to pay.
It's I went to Chicago. I went to New City. What was it? Probably 2 years ago, Brian. And I met with the leadership team. And Brian knows, and Mark, you're learning this. I'm kind of like, I'm a student of the game. I study everything. I'm a strategist. I have a list that bring it on. Nobody can beat it. It's a list of every task a moving organization will ever have to do, right? For all departments. And I segmented it. And I went and met with Brian's team for a whole day. He gave me the team for a whole day. And I realized because I'm operationally minded, I built out my whole system where operations is doing HR. Operations is doing customer service. Operations is literally doing everything on fire, while upstairs sales is sitting back, drinking a latte, right? Waiting on the phone to ring.
And so the complete opposite. Yep.
Yeah. And so Brian, I went there and kind of went through these things, and he was like, why is claims in operations? Why is this enough? Why are you doing payroll in operations? Why are you doing this? And it was so enlightening to say, I only need to do it this way because I'm an operations manager. That's who I trust. That's who I spent the most time with. So they're doing everything. And Brian was able to kind of help me level out. Now, Brian took some things and put it in operations for the list. It was a good.
For the record, I put everything into Todoist now, thanks to Stephen. So I got a Todoist on all of the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly tasks. So shout out to Stephen for that, because everything is sort of on a checklist, and the dispatchers use that as their North Star, right? So if you got that guy that puts diesel in the unleaded truck, or if you have that customer that's bitching about the guys driving on their lawn, or you got that mover that doesn't show up in the morning and you need to like swap jobs around, with that Todoist, you come back to that daily schedule. And like, if you've checked off that you've done everything on that list, go home. If you haven't, please tell me why you couldn't. It's the ultimate way in order to know, like, we don't really like throw a dart at a dartboard when we try to get 6.5 hours worth of utilization out of a person in our office in an 8-hour workday. When it starts to go past that, there is, like, I tell people all the time in the organization, like, there is no glory at being burnt out here, because I might make, like, on a Monday, I might make $10 when I should have had to spend that $10. On a Tuesday, I might make $20. On a Wednesday, I might make $30 on the back of that person. But like, when that continues to happen, how many times can I burn this person out before I need to go find a new person? And there's no glory in burnout. So with that Todoist, I know down to a T what they're completing, what not they're completing, if they're being efficient with their time, and if I need to hire somebody else, either abroad or in the office, in order to facilitate those tasks.
Everybody in my organization logs into their Todoist, right? And their Todoist has their recurring tasks or new tasks their manager is given. If there's an overdue item, that's flagged to me because there's not a manager that's managing effectively. Meaning, we didn't say, hey, there's more time to do this. I see that I put something else on your plate. Let me extend that due date. Or proactively, there's something that roadblocked it and I need to bring it up so it's not overdue. Right. But every day, our assistants, we wake up to so again, I've set up our assistants to be guides to us. Our assistants is letting us know, and they're already working on why is something overdue. Why did you leave it in here? So we're getting to work. We're alerted of this is still overdue and it's a problem. And this is what we have recurring today, right? We have a plan
Trust
already.
But verify. Trust but verify, but actually verify, not just say you're going to.
Yeah. Overdue is a red flag in our organization. That's going to
what program are you using? Sorry, Stephen, what program are you using?
Todoist.
Yeah.
Todoist task manager.
TODO-IST. TODO. Yes.
And my assistants are running Todoist on everything, but our side, what gets overdue turns up to Slack. So we manage it through Slack. Our assistants run the workflows in each department, but it runs up to Slack when something's overdue. So then it's like, wow, they're overdue anytime.
If you think that this is micromanaging your employees, if you think this is overkill, I would ask you to look at like any doctor's office in the United States and tell me if that surgeon isn't checking off the fact that they have a clean scalpel. The fact that hospital bed has been sanitized. I mean, like if you read the checklist manifesto, like there's 1,000 different reasons why somebody would like a checklist. Now, the day that me and Steven develop a piece of software that actually gives a reward and turns this into gamification, we'll probably be millionaires instead of sitting on this podcast with you, Mark. No offense.
Whoa.
But once we come up with that gamification element, I was just thinking about that out loud. If there was a gamification element to that, wouldn't that be something where people could get points in order to use towards Amazon gift cards? Or I think that would really be something like a gamification element to do it.
I really think so too. I really like that a lot. So also on tasks, just another note, never onboard anybody in operations. I'm going to speak at what I'm an expert in. Anybody in operations, I'm never putting over 4 hours of tasks for me on a day. For somebody. That's when I say there's a position need or something else, because there's so much that hits us in the face. Like customers calling that you didn't plan for, and never underestimate if you're not getting the movers calls, they didn't go away. Somebody's taken, right? And so 4 hours, I never put more than that. That's kind of what I did on the threshold as I see it.
My biggest thing about an assistant too has been like, I just set my schedule and like there's no duplications. And like, I'm actually going to things in a timely fashion and getting reminders. Like that was just like that was like my kryptonite for a real long time. Is Mark will call me up and say, hey man, I want you to do this podcast. And Steven would say, hey, I need this edit on my website. Can you swing into Duda or Elementor and help me out on this? I'd be like, fuck yeah. 2 of my friends, we're just going to do it at the same time. And I'd end up disappointing everybody. So I'm only biting off what I can chew now. But at the same time, like, I think I've become wickedly efficient as a result. I think I'm actually working. I think I'm actually working 3 times more efficient than I have been in the past. I was like that guy at the gym.
Everybody in the organization does Todoist, right? But on an assistant level, this is what I hear, and everybody's setting up. And I'm not bashing any other companies, but like you're supposed to. Your assistant is. I hate the VA word and how loops it's getting used. Your virtual assistant is supposed to help you, guide you. You're not supposed to be like, I hired this person and now I need to teach them everything in the org and add things to my plate. That's what the difference is. Your assistant's supposed to be helping build that Todoist system with, right? And that's where the VA is kind of just like it's a bad word for me right now. That's why I'm going with role. It's a critical role, but on the but when I was speaking on 4 hours, assistants, I'm doing more than 4 hours. Because they're just in an office. They're not getting the mover calls, right? They're in my desk. They're at my computer doing it. But in the office, coaching and one-on-one, putting on employees and things, no more than 4 hours. Well, that's a doers for their return.
I know so many people that are like, hey, I got this problem with my operations manager, my dispatcher. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And then they're just like, well, he's on the truck all the time. And then when he comes back, like he doesn't get all of his tasks done. And I was like, man, if you've ever opened up the shop, went out to do a move, and then came back and closed up the shop, like you're asking this person to to switch from white collar to blue collar back to white collar. And it's just like, it's not that simple. It's not that simple in order to do this. It's like, you really got to look.
Hey, when something happened, somebody called in, right? We're all leaving. Hey, let's all look at the task and get this done. Let's rally. Who's left? The sales guys, we need to pick up to get this man to tomorrow. Right. That's what's key is that there's want that organization system to not have that guy come back and be punished for having to help the team. Right.
Do you really need to cross train? In most cases, if you got Loctite SOPs and that office manager is on maternity leave for a month, with some level of quick pass down, you should be able with some certainty be able to figure out what's going on with that role. Not just that, but you're not at the mercy of your staff. Yeah. How many times are the listeners like at the mercy of their staff members saying, well, I would get rid of, Jeffrey because he gets drunk every Friday and doesn't show up, but the business is just so dependent on him. And I was like, if Jeffrey gets
16 years of how many times I said that, and let me go back through 16 years of how many times I actually pulled the trigger and never thought twice about Jeffrey and me.
If Jeffrey gets drunk on a Friday, the second or third time, I'm sitting down with his ass, telling him on Monday what a great job he's doing, and I'm just building the SOP with him. So on that Thursday night, when he does that shit again on Friday, we got Craigslist, LinkedIn, we got it all. We got an ad out for something that vaguely looks like his position, and we're just interviewing people ready to hand them over the SOPs that this man just helped me build.
I need to say, though, using Jeffrey as an example name from my side,
I don't know. Is there a Jeffrey?
In my life, and they're not the example that we're using. They're my guys.
I can tell you that I just pulled the name out of thin air. I was honestly, I was thinking about Jeffrey the giraffe. They're opening up a Toys R Us in the suburbs of Chicago, and I was thinking about the damn giraffe, if I'm being honest with you.
My guys are last thing they're listening to is a podcast of things that I'm saying every day to.
There are things that you are saying that are not true, by the way, and I just want to take this opportunity to clear this shit up. A few years ago, yeah, I'm talking to you. A few years ago, you had made a statement at a Moving Titan retreat about 4 years back that I wear those, what do you call it?
We're going here?
Yeah, we are.
Mark's uncomfortable already.
Can I take 2 minutes here, Mark, or should we take this offline? Because this man's going around. This man's going around saying that I'm wearing web toe shoes. You call them?
There's foot shoes.
The foot
yeah,
shoes.
So you told a group of our peers, by which I'm respected in the community, that I wear those shoes that when you put your toes in them, they're shoes, they're aquatic shoes, but when you put your toes in them, they sort of form to your toes. And I'm clearing up the record right now once and for all. That's a lie. And that's never been true. And actually, when we were discussing this, Mark had actually said that he owns a pair for the gym.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, sure. I do. And so running and for hiking. To me, they're the most fantastic shoes. I'd wear those in the water to keep my feet safe. When I'm like, I don't want to step on coral or think about anything, they are like the cat's ass.
That wasn't a shot at you, though, because you do a lot of things with your kids and your family that might require a good toe shoe. Now, me, on the other hand, I'm majority of could you imagine me sitting at a computer for 12 hours a day with a toe shoe? It's just, and he brought it up out of thin air. And I
didn't know it was offensive. I know it's an outdoorsy thing.
Well, where did it come from?
I said, hey, Brian, are those your foot shoes over there? We saw some foot shoes, and I just asked, are those foot shoes? And then I sensed the defensiveness, and so I had to go hard. Right?
But you didn't drop it.
He goes, you really think I'm a foot shoe kind of guy? And I didn't say anything else. I just let it go for a minute. And so I let him come back to me a few times with that thought of, why did you say that? Because I know he.
I'm so glad this finally got to clear the air. We really had to make sure that everybody understands this.
Shoes, it's not something that I don't even know. Like, that'd be weird to put them on. Like, where do they just fit right in? Are they custom made for your toes? I was ready to ask my friend all these questions, and he took it offensive. I had all these curious questions about asking foot shoes.
And then when we were at the last Titan retreat with Chad and Wade, you took it upon yourself to bring it up with the Lyft driver when we were on our way back from. So it's gone too far. I'm closing it right now. I've never actually worn socks that grip to my toes, nor shoes, nor any sort of, I like flip-flops and sandals. I get them from Costco, and I like on-cloud shoes, but I've never worn anything that's contoured to the bottom of my body. But I will thank you for that recommendation.
What socks are you talking about? Like socks that have like the toes? Like
Yeah, like the toe shoes. Yeah,
those are weird and creepy.
He's trying to clear the air so much that he doesn't want to get lumped into sock toe things either. He's like, don't even put me in socks.
And this is where I'll tell you, and I'm going to end it on this, but this man did give me a recommendation to go to Costco and get a 3-pack of boxer shorts from Duluth Trading Company. And I got to tell you, that completely changed my life. I've never gone back since. But then he's such a big proponent of this that I went out to get 50 pairs, and now he's saying that he's on to some sort of Tom John something.
It's just depends on the weather. It depends on the weather of the day. You know, I'm in a humid town. You were sweaty yourself when you were here. You had the meat sweats.
Yeah. Well, there was no reason why we should have ate barbecue like 7 out of 8 meals.
Beg to differ. We're talking to a Memphis fan.
That's what we do.
Yeah. Well, I just had to clear the air on that. I'm sorry to make this personal. I'm actually sorry to the viewers for the last 3 minutes that they needed to listen.
This is like an 8-minute.
Sorry, I'm going to try some awesome barbecue, Memphis barbecue sauce. My buddy has a great company. It's the best sauce there is. Meat Whiskey. Look it up. Try that barbecue sauce. You can buy it online. Absolutely.
Great. Just follow that affiliate link in our profile.
I'm also selling toe shoes on Amazon. They're $14.99, and Mark's going to sign each pair.
That's right.
Which some people are out here. Wade from Titan wrote a book about entrepreneurialism, and I'm out here selling toe shoes. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
what is it about me that I can't figure out something good? And he's got the book there. Shout out Wade.
Wade.
What is it about? Titan. What is
Let's see if Wade watches. See if Wade watches. Nobody say anything to Wade. Let's see if he watches that we shouted him out on the tester.
Yeah, let's.
It's a great book.
Him out here.
Haven't bought this and read it. You're crazy right now. He's giving it away to the world. Right?
What else you got here, Mark? I think we.
Oh, that's it. Now we're done. We were signing off until you went on this whole foot tangent here. So I mean, this
is moving operations and critical things that everybody wants to hear. Second part is foot shoes and the affiliate.
This is how stuff gets started, because the way that you signed up there was your foot obsession or something. See, you're just adding fuel to the fire. There's no reason for that.
To get the product out there, we're going to launch this in 2 weeks. We got foot shoes to do.
Yeah, we got a whole warehouse to start making them. Okay, guys, we're going to sign off on this. Thank you so much for joining the show. This is Movified Wednesdays with Stephen Reed and Brian Slater, and your host, Mark Hirschi. And stay Movified, everybody.
Whoop that trick.
Oh. Awesome. Thanks, guys.